everyone, and welcome back. We had a nice summer break, and we decided to come back in August. I'm glad everybody's back here with us. I am Stacey Leigh. You are watching the Rustic Spirit. Well, no, Becoming Enchanted with the Rustic Spirit. I forgot I changed the name again. I'm a little rusty. I feel a little rusty right now. I don't know why. Probably because I've been a month sitting in my house doing nothing but painting and not sure how to do this anymore. So I'm glad everybody who's here with us tonight. Do we have any comments yet? Nope, we don't have any comments yet. So we're just going to get started and get rolling into our paying the bills. So we are the Rustic Spirit, Becoming Enchanted with the Rustic Spirit podcast. We are live on Wednesdays or Thursdays. I'm changing things up a bit this season. I'm not quite sure. Like I'm checking and trying to feel out Wednesdays because of my work schedule. And it is just me now. Gary has gone to do night shift. I will have some guest co-host every now and then. But please come and join us. If you cannot join us live on Facebook or on YouTube, you can check us out on Spotify. You can always go back and watch the episodes on YouTube. We're on iHeart. We are on Apple Radio and some other, wherever you can find your podcast at, we are pretty much there. And now for our sponsors. I am one of my sponsors. This is our Spirit Flames by the Rustic Spirit. This is candles that I make here in my kitchen in small batches. They are intention candles. So I make these candles on full moon or new moons because new moon is a perfect time to set that intention. And we now have 9 different intention candles and working on more, and just started a brand new line of cryptid candles. So we have our Bigfoot candle with I love this one because it's a little foot. It literally smells like dirt. Like the candle smells like dirt. And then we have our alien, our encounter candle, and our Mothman candle. And this one actually right now is completely sold out. I have no more Mothman candles left, so I have to get to candle making. And our first sponsor is Maine Paranormal and Horror Con. That is happening very soon, actually a month from now. Tickets are now on sale. There's vendors, there's celebrities, there's the VIP party, there's galleries. Annabelle's going to be there. And I know our guests actually are here. They just had a podcast on Annabelle. They talked a lot about that. It was a wonderful podcast. I watched it while I was door dashing. And well, I listened to it, should I say, while I was door dashing. I didn't watch it while I was driving. I promise. I'm safe. That is going to be in Augusta, Maine on September 6th and 7th. And they have that VIP dinner party that is happening. And on August 23rd, tickets are going to be finalized. They have to know how many people they have by August 23rd. So if you want a ticket to the VIP dinner party, which includes it includes dinner, it includes DJ, it includes dessert, it includes bumping them elbows with all them celebrities that are going to be there. So go on mainparahorror.com and get your tickets now. Our next sponsor is Unique Paranormal 1.5. They are presenters of the Creep It Real Festival. This is the one from June 21st, 2025, but they haven't just announced they are doing it again next year. And I don't have the dates yet. I have to look those up because I didn't update the slide. I just realized that. They also have the Doll's House, which is in Loretto, Pennsylvania. It is a spooky little tiny house in the middle of Loretto. Lots of history in this town. And you guys got to go and check that out. They have electricity, full working bathroom, air conditioning, and heat. So it is a comfortable place to definitely investigate in the winter. So please go check them out. You can find them on all the socials. If you just Google Unique Paranormal 1.5, The Doss House, or Creep It Real, you will find all of those sites. And coming up this weekend, actually in a few days, is Got Knockers Presents Central Pennsylvania Bigfoot and Cryptid Festival, the 3rd year in a row. This year, it's going to be held at the Susquehanna Valley Mall, indoors. So no floods, no rain, no losing product, no can't get wheelchairs through the mud. This is handicap friendly, vendor friendly. It's all indoors. There's like 125 vendors. There are multiple speakers, multiple celebrities, and I believe they are live streaming a movie or streaming a movie later that evening. So you are on the live, Jerry. You're here. I see you. So Central Pennsylvania, Bigfoot and Cryptid Festival, Susquehanna Valley Mall, Sealands Grove, PA. And our next sponsor is Snarly Owl, historically cryptid West Virginia, snarlyowl.com. So in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, I think from this weekend, 3 weeks, that he is having an awesome festival at Thick and Thin Brewery. This is Rats and Reapers. It's a car show. The hearses are going to be there. It is on August 23rd, and it's in Hagerstown, Maryland. It is also going to be an amazing event. So please come out. Jerry, I know you're in that area. So if you want to come out and see me, I will be there. Myself and Jeff from Jeff's Traveling Boards are special guests, as well as Black Magic. She just has this wonderful light fire show. I don't think she'll be doing fire show here, but she is just an amazing little, I say little because she's little, individual that does a lot of acrobatic dancing and fire shows. So that is it for our sponsors. So tonight we have Chad and Jamie from JOTT Nyx Paranormal. They have their own podcast that they run. They have done multiple different locations. They've been investigators for a long time, and I'm not one. I don't want to sit there and blab out their history. I want them to introduce themselves. But before we do that, I want to talk about one little tidbit in Central PA. So I am from Central PA, and we are going to start doing a spooky legends in our area. So we have you guys ever heard of the 7 Gates of Hell? It is a tale passed around campfires, shared in hushed tones at dinners. It's whispered in this area in the forest of Hellam Township, which is actually in between our guest and me. It's just outside of York, Pennsylvania. It's in York County. So in these hidden woods, there are 7 gates. Some call them portals. And if you pass through all of them in order after dark, you will be sent straight to hell. This is that urban legend. Now, only one gate is visible by daylight, they say, but others, they appear once the sun goes down. And that's when the real danger begins. There's a couple versions of how this came to be. There is one legend of an asylum that once stood deep in this Hellam forest. A fire broke out, trapping all staff and patients inside. Many perished, others escaped. And to keep them from fleeing in the surrounding towns, 7 gates were erected, mass ironstone barriers said to be built with more than just human hands. The other one is a reclusive doctor, possibly a man of science or an occultist. And this is the one I'm more aligned with. It is said to have built the gates on his private property. Locals never saw much of him, but they said they heard things chanting in the woods, strange lights flickering behind the trees. And after he vanished, the 7 gates remained. And then the people started disappearing. They would say these adventurous teens, amateur ghost hunters, skeptics were drawn to the mystery, and some returned pale and shaking, claiming they made it through the first few gates before being chased off by something. There is so much haunted history in that woods, in that area. It could have been anything. But no one has ever claimed to go past all 7 gates and survive. A lot of skeptics say it's just a story. It's rural folklore at its best. There's no proof that the asylum ever existed. In history, there is nothing that says the asylum existed and no record of the doctor. But there is a thing when the locals refuse to enter the woods after dark. When they won't talk about the 7 gates, you have to wonder, is it really a legend? Or are there things in those woods that can't be explained? So if you're ever in York County and you hear whispers among the trees, don't follow them. And if you see a gate that wasn't there before, turn around. So on that note, I am going to bring Chad and Jamie, who is from our area, into our stage. Hello, guys. How are you?
Great. How are you, Stacey?
Hey, Stacey. Good evening. Oh my, 7 gates, huh? You had to start with that? Wow. That is, I grew up in Columbia, PA, so really quite literally, one town away, more or less, from Hellam, where this alleged location is. So I've heard the story since I was a kid, and you're right. There are people I know people who live in Hellam Township, Hellam Borough, even, who don't talk about it and I don't think they know why. That's the interesting thing, because they just know they shouldn't, whether they know anything about it or not. It's just one of those taboo things that people hold off on, and I think they want to know where you're coming from first, right?
Yeah.
Skeptic or believer, either way. But there's just kind of a hush about it in the area, and it's fascinating.
So Albert says it's in Hellam on Toad Road. I grew up there. It's only legend. I don't know if it's called Toad Road anymore, though. Is it still called Toad Road? Because I've actually driven this road. It's a horseshoe-shaped road, and you can count 7, like where you would get. Some of them do have like pillars, and like there used to be a gate there. It looks like a farm going back to something. Like you can see in this horseshoe road that it is there. I don't know if maybe it is still called Toad Road.
I think it's, looking at the map, I think it's a combination of Trout Run Road and Toad Road.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
It is.
So it's one of those, like Jamie said, it's one of those things that people want to know where you're coming from before you start talking about some of the stuff. And a lot of these urban legends, people just talk among themselves, but bring a stranger into the conversation, they're not going to share. So
it's like that a lot in this area. Do you notice that in this Columbia or Lancaster and York area? Like there's a lot of urban legend here. There's a lot of things, but people just don't talk about it. It's not talked about unless like you got to know where you're coming from and what your purpose is. There's a lot of lands that I can't get on. I literally, have you guys ever heard of Gut Road?
I have not.
It's outside of Mount Wolf.
Okay.
It is, I don't know if you know the Wago Club. It's along the Susquehanna and like we go down there and go fishing. It's a dirt road. There's a lot of legend there. I've actually had a lot of activity there. There's a lot of legend there. There's a lot of history there. On this side is the Union Stone Company. Used to be the Union Stone Company. And there is these tunnels that lead over to the old barracks and all the old quarries and all the stuff over there. It is now private land. You can't get there, but people like me and my daughter who does urban exploring on her own at 15. We jumped down. I was with some friends and we went down and it was daylight and we're like, let's just go explore. So we go down under, you have to go around and under the bridge, like not bridge, but like a little overpass to get over in this tunnel. And we're not in the tunnel yet, but we're just kind of exploring and looking at things. And we weren't down there 30 seconds as we went under and there's no one around. We checked. There's like, we didn't see anybody coming. All of a sudden Game Commission was there. He appeared out of nowhere. And we look up at him and I'm like, he's like, what are you doing? I said, we're looking for pretty rocks.
And that's not untrue, right? I mean, it's part of the process.
It looked like we were looking for pretty rocks, and then we were just like picking up rocks. And he's like, "You guys, you're not supposed to go back there, right?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're not going back there. We're just looking for pretty rocks, just looking for the pretty rocks, and maybe like some relics." And he's like, you can't look for relics here. You'd have to turn that into an archaeologist. And I'm like, yeah. We're like, I have a friend who's an archaeologist. And I'm like talking out my ass at this point, trying to like not get in trouble. Because we had our camera, we had equipment, we had everything. You can tell what we were going to go do. And something like it was just really weird. He appeared out of nowhere. So we ended up leaving and we're like, okay, we're not going back there. But afterwards, and we're driving back, it was like 4 of us. There's no signs posted that says no trespassing. None. So I could have fought that. I could have been like, what do you mean? There's no signs here that says no trespassing. So yeah. It's just kind of one of those another urban legends or one of those things that if you're local, you are not allowed back there. You don't talk about it. You don't go back there.
Yeah.
So
the York County, Lancaster County, we have so many urban legends. It's so interesting. And we've covered quite a few on our podcast.
Yeah. And we have, and there's so many more though, that just are waiting to be explored. Yeah. That's the paranormal world in general though, right? There's so much of it. There's no walls, and that's kind of a joke, right? With ghosts, they have no walls, but we have almost unlimited subject matter to discuss at some point as we progress through episodes. And we haven't run out of anything through three seasons now, so here we go.
No,
so
I mean, on that note, You guys are run your own podcast. You guys are investigators. Let's start with you, Jamie. Introduce yourself. Tell people who you are, and
Oh man, I'm Jamie. That's it, just Jamie. I grew up in Columbia, like I mentioned, and on Cherry Street, in a house 216 Cherry. Which, if anybody's in the Columbia area, it's the first house on the right as you're coming up. It's a very large brick home that was built in 1900. We bought it in the 70s, the early 70s. My grandparents, I live with my grandparents. They bought it, and for a song, essentially, because it was never been renovated. It still had a hearth in the kitchen, no modern amenities. It had electricity, but it was pretty simple, very basic. It was owned by the Hinkle family. If you know Hinkle's restaurant or Hinkle's pharmacy, as it was then, and restaurant, it was a matriarch of the family's home, and they had not lived in it for quite a long time. So we got it. My grandfather was a carpenter. He did all the work. This is how I learned to swear, was helping him, right? The things that got wronged. A lot of times it was not paying attention enough when something needed to be handed. So I got called a lot of names too. But that house to me was phenomenal because of that. But then once we moved in, it took about 2 years, and we moved in, then stuff started happening. And I'm maybe 7 or 8 years old at this time. Every night there was a stairwell that went up, pivoted, and came up again, and then a major landing with 6 doors around the vestibule kind of thing upstairs, the hallway. And certain steps made a creak, and you knew someone was coming. This was great when I was older, because I knew if my folks were downstairs and I wasn't supposed to be up, I'd hear the steps and I'd turn the light off quick. They wouldn't see it. But at 3 a.m, there was no sense of why this was happening. And then doorknobs would rattle, other stuff, things would move around in the house occasionally, so it struck me at a very young age of like, what I didn't know then what paranormal activity was, or if ghost hunting was, or any of this stuff. This was, mid 70s or so, late 70s, early 80s. And, we didn't have shows yet at that time. So, always kept as an interest, moved around the country, a lot of places, started realizing that, there are people who do this, and started getting interested. Come around to the 90s and 2000s, shows started popping up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone, kind of thing. And it led me to Jerry and Melissa Keller, friends of mine. Jerry and I went to elementary school together way back in the day, and their team with JOTT Nyx Paranormal, and it led me to them as an opportunity to go investigate over in York one night. And we were in a property. It used to be a doctor's office, and in the morgue part of it. And we had some SLS activity, and that was it. I was in. That was 6.5 years ago, something like that. So I was officially on the team, but always interested. So it led us to, what more can we do as investigators? We have a regular gig. We're at Booby's Brewery in Mountjoy, PA, on a regular basis. We host public events there. So, and you've been there with us, Stacey. So it's a cool old property. It's on the National Historic Register. But the team was like, what else can we do, to expand more? And the podcast idea came up. And this is 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, I guess. And Chad and I and our teammate Dave Dermidi, who was also a co-host back then, we sat for months, and over beers and such at the brewery, strategizing, planning, and then that's how Paranormal Lens got launched. And we haven't looked back. David has stepped away. He has another business venture he wanted to pursue, but he contributes occasionally as a guest host, and the door is always open. And where we go. So that's my quick story.
You wrangled Chad.
And I wrangled Chad in one night. Yeah. He's going to tell you he has a birthday coming up, and I won't steal the date for him. But one year I decided to give him get him a ticket to one of our investigations as a gift, because he's interested, and we talked about it a lot. And then he just never stopped coming, like ever. So
couldn't get rid of him.
It got to the point. I kept buying tickets to go to investigations, and Melissa was like, "Would you stop? Would you just come and be part of our team?
Let's do it." Yeah. So and this is an exercise in perseverance, right? It's keep showing up for something you like, and then eventually the doors can open. So we haven't looked back. It's been great.
Yeah. So actually, Jamie, it's been almost 4 years, because my birthday's coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's when it was. When
I was like, your birthday's not on Facebook. I'm looking for it right now. You don't have it on there.
I don't. So
I jumped over. I was like, I got to find out.
When you get to a certain age, you take that off social media. So.
So anyway, so my story is actually sort of a lot like Jamie's. I grew up in Adams County, about 7 to 9 miles south of Gettysburg. My parents bought an old farmhouse that was split off of a larger farm. It was the servants. When I say servants, it was like the tenant farmers who farmed the land, did all that stuff. And they bought the house, and my dad was a teacher, and he went into school, and one of the students came up to him and goes, "You bought the haunted house." And my dad was like, "What do you mean?" But in the back of his mind, he was saying, yeah, I did. So I was, I was born into that house. So my parents were there, had experiences. And like Jamie, we had a set of steps that every night you could almost set the clock by it. Like 10:20, something walked up those steps around the hall, because the second floor had a hall, walked around the corner into the room my brother and I shared. And every night, I mean, it's when you're a kid, that scares you. Like you don't know what to expect. We knew it was haunted, but it was like, well, what could happen? So I sort of blocked stuff out for years and years. I worked in theater, so I had a couple experiences in theaters throughout the years. I worked at the Fulton Opera House, and that in Lancaster, that's definitely, there's stuff there.
Oh yes.
Had some great experiences there, and had just learning through people throughout the years. But then Jamie gave me the opportunity to come hang out with JOTT Nyx, and I never looked back. And I think every now and then he's sorry, but he's sorry he got that ticket for me. But no, we have a great time together.
You two are like inseparable. Like I noticed that when I was like, you guys are constantly together. Like you like, I don't know, but like buddy system type of thing.
Well, you can't trust and be alone. That's basically what it is. You wander.
Yeah, and then the funny or fun thing is, I guess, my son has joined us now on the team as well.
Yeah,
so
it's really cool.
It's definitely it's great for me to see him follow up and follow through with it. He's sensitive. I'm an empath, so I get feelings all the time. Good and bad, and sometimes that's really overwhelming. I had an experience the other day that was just overwhelming. And my younger child, Emmy, is also there's some sensitivity there as well. So we're trying to figure out what that means.
But isn't it nice that, like you just talked about, like when you were younger, you had these experiences, you really didn't know what they were, you kind of shut everything out, you had no idea, was a little scared of it. Your children will not be. And same with mine. Like I wasn't. I actually grew up in a family that was very open with all of this stuff. But your children will not be like, and mine are not like we can be there to help explain, some of this stuff and not be.
And I don't want to say that my parents were not like my dad and I have great conversations about paranormal and what's next and UFO. Like he's a very open-minded person, and it's not that he didn't believe. It's just, it's still scary when you're not sure what it is. Like, yeah, especially when there's physical things happening in your house, you just never know. But yeah, but you're right. My kids aren't scared. My Alex saw a face in a window of my parents' house one day. He's like, why is there somebody in that room? And I'm like, there's nobody in that room. So, but it is.
Yeah, I think it's becoming more, I guess, acceptable and not and not so eerie and spooky. There's, I guess, what do you think about that, guys? Like, is there more of an understanding of what paranormal is now? And I think we're becoming jaded.
Yeah, I think we're in the golden age, right? Of all the access to everything, and there's so much content now that, and there's so many ways to ask questions if you're unsure. Like there's a lot more of an openness. I think there was a taboo about it, in years past, decades past specifically. But, now with, anytime you turn on any of the cable channels, you got a show on some night of the week, right? Some version of something. And, you could pick your poison that way if you like it, whatever it is, something darker, heavier, or something light and airier, but it's always there. And the internet's opened the doors for everybody around the world. That's the fascinating thing. And, you're not alone then. I could just start searching. You'll find everything. It's super cool.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, the closest thing to a paranormal TV show would have been Unsolved Mysteries, where they sometimes hit on things like that. Or I mean, there was the X-Files, but
what was that show? It was early 90s, late 80s, and it wasn't there was another one, not Unsolved Mysteries. Maybe it was Unsolved Mysteries. Hold on. It was the dude, and he would be like, oh, hold on. I'm gonna have to look that up because I watched it recently. Like it was like horrible, but it would talk about like these teenagers went out at night and this happened to them, and was it real or was it? Which one is fake? Which one is a real story? It was like 3 different stories, and one was real and one was not.
Okay.
I do not recall that one.
I don't remember it. But...
Hold on.
Bert said the Twilight Zone.
No, not Twilight Zone. There was something else, and it was like it was someone that we knew. It was like a guy famous guy that hosted it, and they would tell like multiple stories, but only one of them was real, and they would you have to like figure out what the real one was.
Oh.
Yeah, I have no idea.
You're not going to sleep till you find this. I get it. I totally understand
that. I know it's our age.
Before we slide away from this, I want to note something that Chad did something pretty incredible last season. Episode, I want to say like 46, 47, right near the end of the second season. He did an episode on the hauntings of his childhood home. He actually went and documented and worked with his siblings. He has a brother and a sister, his dad, and the kids, his kids and all, to capture a lot of the evidence they've caught through the years or the things they've experienced and put it into, I think, a really good episode that was really personal for him. And, kudos to that for the courage to do it. Cause obviously, your dad still being in the house, he didn't want to know a whole lot of stuff, right? Cause you don't investigate your own home, but the capturing of the tales and outreach to people, was really a lot. And the stories are really cool. And
there were things that we found out that we didn't know. So one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, this happened to me, but I never told anybody." And even in follow up to that, my dad ran into somebody the other day, and he goes, "I used to mow the lawn there before my parents moved in. He used to be the guy that took care of the grass and garden stuff." He said, I saw people in that house when there was nobody there. So we're still learning about people who've had experiences. So, which is really cool.
And it just extends the story even more, because now you're engaged to people around it and would never know. Super cool.
Yeah.
So I did find out the show, guys. It started in 1997. It was called Beyond Belief.
I remember hearing of it. I don't know if I watched it, but
I don't recall this one.
Yeah, Beyond Belief. It was Jonathan Frakes that hosted it. Hold on. I'm going to show you. You're going to know it when I see it. I'm just going to share my screen real quick. Share screen.
Well, 97, I would have had an.
There we go. Right there. Okay. Beyond Belief. Fact. It's on Peacock now, like, and Tubi and Amazon Prime. So you got to go watch it. It's actually, it's a horrible show, but it's entertaining. But yeah, Beyond Belief, fact or fiction. Okay. So they would give you like these like urban legends, like what we were just talking about, like with Helm and things like that. And they would tell you all these things that had to happen, and then you had to pick the one that was real. That was what that show was. It was, and at the end they told you which one was real. It's really good, actually.
All right.
I'll have to check that one out.
I'm making a note. I'm old and I'm writing things down.
I know, right? But I'm writing things down.
Oh, speaking of that, I wrote this down. The Creep It Real Festival is June 19th through June 21st next year.
Thank you.
Multi-day event.
Thank you.
Yeah.
She just announced it this week, and I've been, starting my new job, and I haven't really been on Facebook much. So I was like, I knew I saw a post, but I couldn't remember the day, and literally had 20 minutes before the podcast started to like update my slides. So
we understand that.
Yes. We get busy very well.
So.
Like you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sit down and do this, and then this happens, and then we're out of coffee, and I'm like, I gotta go get coffee for the morning. Like it's yeah. So
that's the priorities, right? Hashtag priorities.
Yeah. Hashtag priorities. Coffee. Like if you're a paranormal, like what did I tell you guys when I came and investigated? It's like just make sure there's coffee there.
Yeah. There's so that lets me to a question. What do you guys have to take with you to an investigation that's not equipment? What's your go-to thing? A snack, a drink, a treat, or whatever?
I like they're called nerds clusters. Have you ever? I think we talked about those, right? They're like candy, like not chocolate, not like heavy candy, like sugary, chewy, sour candy. It just kind of helps me keep me awake.
Mine is beef jerky and Twizzlers. Those two things.
Twizzlers for sure.
Yeah.
There's always a bag of Twizzlers at all our stuff. Yeah,
There's like Twizzlers.
Twizzlers, yeah, and being around here, that's a Hershey product, right? So
Albert says Heather. He always has to bring Heather.
Oh, he's a sweetheart.
That's a package right there.
That's so sweet. Yeah, it is. Like they have the last name.
Yeah, they know each other.
I think they might know each other.
Yeah. Talk about a great pair of investigators, though. Heather and Bert are great.
Yeah,
Heather's is sensitive. Bert is too. He doesn't like to admit it all the time, but he is, and they're both great. They do great research. They do great follow up with their stuff, which sometimes I know I'm lacking in.
Yeah, Albert, right? To plug, they are Southern End Paranormal. For those listening, you can find them pretty easily.
Southern End, yes.
Southern End Paranormal.
Yeah, Heather and Albert. I'm looking for guests. Message me if you guys are willing to come on and we'll have a conversation with you guys too. So I like, having real conversations with real people who do the real work. So like, what keeps you guys going with this? Like, what is it like?
Twizzlers.
Twizzlers. Recently. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's go back. Jamie, you didn't, what is one thing you bring on an investigation that you have to? You asked that question.
Yeah. So Twizzlers is part of that answer. It varies depending on the mood. It depends on where we're going as well. Something closer to home. Well, yeah, depending again on where you're going physically, but if we're local, around here, I know I can always run to a Sheetz after we're done, and I'm close to home. Like the brewery for me is 10 minutes from my house, and to go to Sheetz is 10 minutes the other way. So sometimes I zip home, but I don't want to do a lot of caffeine and sugar because I get wired up and I want to go home and try to rest because we all have things to do the next day, right? So unless we're traveling, we still have to get out at some point, like to get out on the road again. So I try to find a balance in between. I'm not saying I'm a healthy eater by any means, but like something more that way.
He brings kale. Does he bring kale?
I don't. I will never do that.
Or seaweed, like those little seaweed crunchy.
Somebody can push me down the stairs if I ever bring kale to an event.
So don't worry. If you do,
okay with that.
I will.
Now, if it winds up in my bag, I know it's you, Chad. So no, but something in between. Like beef jerky is a great example of in between. But
trail mix. We usually have trail mix. Yeah.
There was a time if it's candy or sugary stuff, it's Reese's peanut butter cups. Easy. We usually have a big package of them that carries around with us to our events. So that's the easy peasy thing. And a little protein out of it, so you're not hungry or hangry. That's
and there's always somebody that has a flask.
Well, that's true. when we do our events, though, we're the hosts, so we're not. Yeah. We're trying not to get into that kind of direction at all. But we're at a bar. So, the brewery is open and the bar is open there. So, lots of our guests certainly can enjoy all the products they offer. So, that's not unheard of. And I'm sure someone's brought a flask, of course, but, we don't necessarily see it. Not us.
No, I'm talking like when there's cold investigations, sometimes I will bring like a little flask of whiskey just for the warmth of it. Yes. Even though I know that's counterintuitive.
Well, it's a survival skill, right? Yeah. So, if you've ever been like say White Hill Mansion over in Fieldsboro, New Jersey, and we've done that in November, and upstairs on the third floor there is just a draft coming through, like it is cold. and we've done it in the middle of summer as well.
I was gonna say that's the one I remember where it was 101 degrees up in the attic, and you wanted as much water and Gatorade as you could.
Yeah, you just kind of slide down the stairs, kind of so overwhelmed with the heat. But when you get a chance to go, you go, right? Everybody wants to go to these places, which is fantastic. I'm never going to argue that I can't get a date because someone's gotten it before me. That's just better planning on their part, right?
Yeah.
So I'll wait, and we waited. I think when we went to Tala, we waited 1.5 years on to get there, by the dates that were available. So, that's fantastic that people are that interested in these places that they're booked. It's great for the place, especially Whitehill. They rely on us as investigators to come to help with their restoration efforts.
And a
lot of those places, that's why they do this. They've opened the doors up for restoration and to raise money for this restoration efforts to like Penhurst does the same thing. Like that's why they do everything that they do is to do these restorations at Penhurst. Which is a lot.
People don't realize the steps that these places have to go through. Like Whitehill's on, I believe, National Historic Register. Yep. So to do any restoration, it takes so many layers of paperwork to even put a coat of paint on something.
And you have to be like a registered historical restoration whatever person.
And even to pull layers of floor up, they have to document. There's one section where they've found 3 layers of flooring. So they have to document each one and try to figure out where it came from and when it was. And it's just it's so much work. And that's why.
And then if you find a bone,
then
everything stops in your whole archaeology.
So, but to answer your question, that's why I like doing this. I love the combination of the history and the paranormal, and the two of them meeting is what brings me back. And a lot of our podcasts, we look at different places, and it's that history that like I said, that combination, that history and paranormal, and the story that the two of them tell together is just amazing.
Yeah, and if you don't look at the history, you don't understand the depth of a location, and us as investigators, we go out to places. Some folks don't want to know anything about it, right, in advance. And I get that. Like, you don't want to have that preconception. You're going to experience something, but you still should know something. In my opinion, this is Jamie's opinion only. I don't represent the team with saying this or anyone else, but I want to know the depth of the history. So I have a feel for how far back we go. Everything is native land. Don't get me wrong. Right. Yeah. But, certainly from the colonial era forward, we as Europeans coming over, we're just taking over stuff. And, our history starts there because that's the real written documents. To do true respect to a place, you really have to consider the native aspect as well, though. And the burial grounds that we've covered over, certainly could be a part of the reasoning for an active space. We just did an episode on Savannah, Georgia last night, and half the city was covered over at some point. It was either native.
I didn't get a chance to watch that, and Savannah's in my heart and soul because I'm Irish, so I am going to go back and watch that. Cool.
No worries, it's out there, but there's so many places there that have been covered over. We did New Orleans back in March, and and they both can be America's most haunted city, right? So okay. Marketing 101, make it the most something, and
it's all marketing. Everything is haunted. It is all marketing.
But there's stories there where people are, people who have a backyard are just digging up something to plant, and they find bodies in their backyards because there were no real cemetery spaces in some cases, or people didn't have the money to afford an interment at the actual cemetery. So they just put them in the backyard and had a day, let's go get a drink. Yeah. So it's amazing how activity.
It's the same thing like in Gettysburg. Like there was, there was graves in the backyard of some of these houses, like right in town, and we got to move the graves because we're building onto the house. Right. They didn't move the bodies; they just moved the gravestones.
Yeah. Well, and you had these places where we're saying it's in town now. It wasn't in town a long time ago.
No, it wasn't. It is in town now. Yes.
So it's
the place I'm talking about with where they moved the headstones and didn't move the bodies. I think it's off of Middle Street somewhere. Yeah.
It's amazing what we do for progress, and we just kind of pave over everything, and okay, sure, that's great for us today, but it's a lack of respect for those who've come before us and passed on. And you wonder why, I'd be kind of pissed off. I was a spirit and somebody did that to me. Right. So hence the activity. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that. And that's what it is. Like, you want to talk about like the real stuff, not like, oh, look at me, I'm famous and I've had a TV show. And it is more about like the history, the stories. And I don't know if you guys saw my post recently, in the past month or so. Like I got caught up in that world of let's get into let's do the things that everybody else is doing, and not I wanted to be famous, but get on TV shows, let's do that. And before I knew it, I was caught up into this, like seeking this praise and attention and wanting to be special and wanting to be, and like what happened, and it like all came to a standstill, and I'm like, this is not me, this is not why I'm doing what I'm doing. And in that whole 2 years that I was kind of in that space, I kind of lost the love for paranormal, because it didn't become what it was. And I've been searching back for it. Watching your show has helped, because then, oh yeah, the stories. It's about the stories. It's about the people, like the individuals that experience these things.
So I'm really working on developing some of my gifts, we'll call them, or my sensitivities. And I was talking to somebody about helping me develop them, and they were like, what do you want to do with this? And I'm like, well, I want to help people, and I'm not knocking anybody who does this another way. And they're like, well, I just want to help people. And they're like, you don't want to do this for a living and get paid to do it? I'm like, no, that's not what this is about for me. This is a personal connection for me. And I want to use it to help with my investigations, and I want to help heal people.
Yeah. And that's how I've always used it. And then I got caught up in that world of like, same thing. And I'm like, oh, yes.
And people are shocked when you say that you don't want to do it for a profit. I'm like, no, I can't, I respect people who do, but that's not me. So.
Yeah. My last 2 Reiki attunements, I didn't charge them. Like, it was more of some of it were trades. It was like a kind of like a barter thing. Like we all helped each other out in certain ways. But yeah, it's like that's obviously, I love doing Reiki. I love doing readings and stuff like that. And if I could do that for a living and not have to work full time, then yeah, there is a way to do that. But most of the work I do, I don't charge for, and people don't realize that. We don't see that part.
Right.
We get asked a lot if we would come and help someone at their home, a private investigation, and and we do. We certainly will if at all able. If it's not
I might need you guys. I don't know if you saw my post just a couple hours ago.
I saw it.
Travel, so unless it's well out of our radius, they're
it's in this area.
Well, no, but other people we've had folks be out of state and pretty far away, and like we can't get there. So we find the team that's closer to them and connect with that and try to get them to some place of resolution support. But we won't charge a nickel or a penny for that matter. For anybody that we help in their homes, and we won't bring it to our program, and we don't bring it out in public in any way. It's a private matter. Right. But there are those who do, and and I'm not knocking anybody. That's their business model. Cool. And obviously you have to do it with permission. So the other party's interested, and that's cool too. It's just not our style. And to Chad's point, that is the help that we can provide that doesn't need to be credited. And I'm good with that. I really am. I think it's fantastic, and I would want someone to do it that way for me as well if I were on the other side. Not the other side of the veil, perhaps, but the other side of the situation. We always have to be careful which side we're talking on. But and then there is a lot of that happens, and it just doesn't get noticed. And I think that's really cool about the community and as a whole, because there is so much of a drive toward notoriety and publicity and profitability. And let's be honest, this can be an expensive field. Right, equipment, places.
I spent a lot of money.
Yeah, and, if you go out,
spend a lot of money trying to make money.
Right. Yes, you got to. You got to spend it to make it. Sort of. but there's a line there somewhere where loss is a loss. And just to go to a Paracon, you pay a ticket, and then and if you're going to stay over, you got a hotel and you've got food, like just that alone, just that
and then on top of that, an investigation at a Paracon, that's another.
There's another fee.
You got to pay for the investigation, and
and if you start collecting equipment, none of that's that's all got a cost to it as well, and you can get some really fancy things that cost a lot of money, and which is cool if that's your choice. So it's a commitment to get to those things. So I don't blame somebody for wanting to recoup their loss that way or their expense that way. It's just not a way.
No, and that's what I was doing, and that's why I did what I was doing, because I was going out to these events, I was doing these things, I was paying $400, $800, $900 to stay there and be there and do all of this, and but then that's where I lost the passion in it. And I'm like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I want my passion back. I want my love. I want to jump in the car with my daughter and run down the gut road. And what can we find, and like, let's look up this story. And like that type of thing is that's the real paranormal to me. That's where my love is doing those things and helping people, doing the private cases, when I can.
I've only done a couple private cases, but walking away, knowing you've made at least a little bit of a difference, not that they're not going to go back and things aren't going to change, but making a little bit, taking a step in the right direction and teaching the people who live there now, like, and how to
sometimes it's just teaching them not to be scared of it.
Right. Coexisting with what's there.
Well, just let them know they're not alone. There are others that around us, people wise, that are there to listen and help them with their experience. They've got a peer group that they didn't know they had before. People understand, and if we can teach, and that's our events, we teach. We get so many people who've never done an investigation before. That's part of the opening. Who's done this before? A bunch of hands that go up. So we have our equipment, we let them use it all through. We teach them the trade, the tricks of the trade, how we investigate, good best practices, and I carry on to say this because I'm sure someday someone's going to call me out, but at the end I say, well, you're all official paranormal investigators now. Your certificates will be in the mail, and
I remember
no
hearing
one
you
called
say
me
that
out
when I
on it
was
yet,
there.
so I probably should design something. But once you're there, you can go out on your own and you have the general nature of what to do, and do it safely, respectfully, and safely being don't just go busting into a place without permission, because as you experience with your daughter, you get out in the dark somewhere, all of a sudden someone with a badge shows up, you get in a lot of trouble. And
or in a tunnel, and sorry, I snort when I laugh. In a tunnel on Gut Road, and Game Commission shows up, and
that's not cool, right?
Talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
Luckily,
you want to drive yourself home, not have them drive you home. So and our teammate Dave, he's done a lot of urban exploring, and we always use him as the example of what not to do for everything because of that. But he admits it too. Like, make sure people, you're allowed to be there, and don't be foolish, because
even
I always use the example.
No trespassing signs. Sometimes the signs aren't there. Like you need to know where you can, where you can't be, and use common sense in it. Like, this doesn't. If it feels like I shouldn't be here, you probably shouldn't be there.
Right.
And tell people where you're going. Like I use the example of the movie 127 Hours all the time. Tell if you get stuck out there somewhere, at least somebody has an idea you're on the trail somewhere, right? But if something happens to you, and these old buildings aren't always structurally safe or sound, and if you're somewhere people don't know where you are and you go through a floor, bad things can happen. You may not be found for a while.
Old building in New York City. It's the old jail. I don't know if you guys have heard of it.
Oh yeah,
It is crumbling down, and there are people that do sneak in, and you're not supposed to be in there, and it's very easy. Like, you could sneak into the place and no problem, but I never would, because one, you're not allowed. Two is that I'm not going to die going through a floor. Because it's dangerous. It's dangerous in there. These buildings can be dangerous.
Absolutely. And that's the point of the safe side of it, but also, the trade practices, like, how to start an investigation, how to exit, and not take anyone home with you. Those are things that are paramount, for the best way to run it, the opportunity and wherever you're going to. So, we teach all that stuff. And that's, to me, that's, if you ask what keeps coming back, what makes us come back, that for me is part of that, and the adventure of not knowing what's going to happen that night. It's not on demand. I can't just say all of a sudden I go into the bar at Booby's Brewery and Eloise is going to walk out of the wall and shake my hand.
Last time you were talking on your episode when you were talking about Annabelle, like you were saying that someone else came through at the bar. And I was, like I said, I was door dashing. So I got to catch bits and pieces of that episode. Did you ever talk about who that was that came through, like instead of Eloise?
We're not really sure. So, and that's the guess game of all of this too, right? With equipment, and apps now that are hopefully helping us with, vocalization. There's more than we've ever had before, but we're still never sure. And, I say this a lot. I trust, as I go through the investigative process, as I'm trying to make contact and something is engaging, if we start going through the process of who it could be and they identify themselves, I have to trust that's who it really is. I can't see them. I can't prove that. So, anybody could say that this is, the nightmares of online dating, right? If you've ever done that, is the person really who they say they are? That's why you always meet in a public place. So, off track a little bit, sorry. But, the idea is we don't know who the spirit is.
Right.
And it could be, as with the belief that Annabelle is named Annabelle because it was presented as a 7-year-old girl, and that makes sense for a doll, right? But the Warrens found out something uniquely different, and there was pretty close to a dangerous situation for that family. Should have gone further down the path. So where are we with that? I still believe in my heart that I have to trust. That's me and that's my nature. But there's always in the back of my mind that this might not be what we're presenting to be, and then be able to pivot if you have to.
There have been some experiences at the brewery where what was presenting wasn't what was there, and we won't go into those things.
Yeah.
But, going back to the question about who do we see that or who came through that night, we don't know, because we don't know if it was something that somebody brought with themselves. Like we do grounding and centering. But if somebody is attached to that person, and I don't mean attached, but if they're traveling with that, watching over them, and they have the opportunity to come through to talk to them, that they haven't had because somebody's there that they can connect with, that's the time it's going to happen. So it could have been something that was just random because of Joe was there that night, and Joe needed to hear something. And that's another thing that's fascinating about this field is it's all about who's there at that time and what they need to hear and experience. So
I like that you said that with what people bring with them. So on that note, that kind of brings up a theory that's out there. Like, let's talk about some of these larger locations. I think Bobby Mackey's would be the perfect one to talk about it, because, and Jamie, you know where I'm going. I think we've talked about this before. Like, there's so many stories and so many history in the Bobby Mackey's that were not true, but because people believed they were true, they were true. What are your thoughts on that? On this, like, I want to call it a talpa, because that's kind of what I would call it. But like, when a collective of people believe something is true, it almost becomes
you manifest.
It manifests itself. It can manifest itself. Yeah.
I say this phrase all the time, but where there's passion, there's energy. And if we are passionate about what we do in the field, right? So we bring our own energy every time, and others do the same. And sometimes it's not positive energy. It's apprehension is not necessarily positive. It could be fear of the unknown. So you might get this mixed bag of things that could create something that's not exactly favorable for us. It could have a negative consequence, and you just don't know the combined power of a group like that. And we have parties of 10, usually in our sessions, and 2 of us, so 12 people in a room, all having projected energy forward. I think the sky's the limit for what could happen, and we don't know enough to say it will happen or not. But I think that's the case, certainly. And a step further would be that there are, individuals who are sensitive as well, have a different heightened ability in that sense. They are more connected to their abilities or their skills, and some people don't know it very well or not at all. So you add that into the mix, and then you get dudes like me I'm not insensitive, but I'm unsensitive. I got nothing. I'm in a room and Chad's like, hey, I feel this and that. I'm like, oh, it's cool. Wallpaper's nice. I rely on science.
Which is why you want to know the history and you want to know all this stuff before you go in, because you want to be prepared. We're like us, and I don't know, Chad, if you feel this way. Like when I go into a place, I don't want to know anything because I want to see what I pick up first, and then I want to match it with the history.
Right. I want to go in knowing the history because I don't have enough faith in my senses yet, which is something I want to talk to you about offline. But
we're gonna work on that.
Yeah, it's just. So yeah, I want to know and then it's actually like, oh, I'm matching it up as I'm going, which am I projecting things? I don't think so.
How many times you're just like, yeah, I knew that. I felt that.
I know. Jamie's been there when I'm like, yeah. It's just, I've connected something. I'm like, Jamie, and then you explain it and he's like, oh, so
I'm like, that's cool, dude. Yeah. Nice.
All right,
I take them seriously every time. And I think that's what we have to do. And it's no different if it were a guest or another investigator or out somewhere. If somebody said they thought they experienced something, it is not our place to say, no, you didn't. It's our obligation to follow it through to the extent that we can to make sure it wasn't something like, it's an environmental thing, like the air conditioner kicked on and now there's a cold spot, because there's a vent right there. Or some equipment turned on, like, we did with the brewery. So there's coolers behind the bar, stuff turns on and it may activate something that's reading EMF. So we have to know where those places are. If you set equipment in that area and then, there it is. We have old wiring. So, in certain areas we just know are just bad for setting down a K2 or something like a dead bell, it's going to activate it. So, we have the privilege of having the recurrence of that place.
Right.
But if I'm going to a place I've never been before, I have to follow all of that stuff out just to make sure it wasn't something that's normal. I mean, and then once you remove all the things
because you're not used to it. Yeah.
Yeah. After everything normal is paranormal, right? It has to be. It's a logical explanation.
So yeah, one of the coolest experiences I had at the brewery was we were downstairs in the catacombs and had a couple sitting there at a two-top table holding hands, and all of a sudden the guy goes, my right side is cold, and the girl goes, my left side is cold, and we pull up a thermal, and right between them is something.
So cool.
And it was really cool, and it was like, how did that happen? And it like, and then it was like, oh yeah, there's definitely something here with you. So it's just, but to be able to debunk or not debunk it and say, oh yeah, you probably did feel something, and there was no air conditioning. It was just cool. So
that is neat. Yeah. And that's the point, like that's why you carry equipment still. Like if we didn't need equipment, this would be a whole lot easier, right? Because we wouldn't have as much stuff to lug along. We'd be a lot richer. But we rely on equipment to help us to understand the environment of the spaces we're in, and some of the stuff is really good, and some of it's really kind of a waste of money, and I'll leave that to everyone to decide what they like. And I have no judgment on anybody's equipment. I know what I like to use. And
that's what I was going to ask you. What is your favorite piece of equipment? What equipment do you have to have with you and you have to take with you?
Twizzlers. That's
no paranormal equipment.
I know.
I'm going to turn my camera off for a second just because I got to get something out of my dog's mouth. But I can hear you, and you're going to be able to hear me.
Okay.
Well, the one thing and this is a new piece of equipment for me, but the one thing I have, and since Christmas time, I think it was a Christmas gift, is a dead bell, and and I credit some friends of ours. That had one before and saw it in use at the brewery and I'm like, I have to have this, but it's it's a regular ring bell on the top like we'd find on a countertop, and then has an EMF detector underneath with a radial dial that you can turn up or down the sensitivity. And I keep it at near the low, almost off. I keep it as low as possible so it's very unsensitive or insensitive. So something has to be right at it. If you turn it up, you're picking up a lot of stuff, and it rings and rings and rings. So we've had so much success with this on just every outing event that I'm now drawn to use it regularly.
And it's at the brewery. It seems to have taken over the flashlight.
I was there with the dead bell that day, and it was
like we used to use. I would used to say that my go-to tools would have been the flashlight and the tripwire, but the bell has sort of dimmed the light on the flashlight because they're not reacting anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love the tripwire.
Mm-hmm.
I love anything EMF, and the dead bell has the EMF. So that's I guess that's I always have to have a K2 with me. Like that's
Well, it's always in the bag, right? It's on the back pocket. It's easy to carry. It's simple
because you can easily explain, like, okay, the K2 is going off because my phone's there, or there's some electric lines, and just with that electromagnetic reading, like like, okay, there's increased activity here, maybe because of there's increased electrical wires, and that can cause some hallucinations and things that might not be real.
Yeah, I was up at the one investigation we did in New York. I can't remember the name of the place, but it was near
Stanley.
No, in Sonoma. What's that? Not Hinsdale, but the other one we did the same time. The
Sanatorium.
The Sanatorium near Hinsdale.
Orange State or Orange.
No,
that's Orange.
Anyway, I digress. Yeah, but anyway,
why am I drawing a blank on this too? Goodness.
We were upstairs, and everybody's like, "Oh, we always see stuff upstairs." Well, right down the middle of the hallway, there was an unshielded electrical wire, and the EMF that was coming off that was so high. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean people weren't experiencing what they thought, but that could have been feeding the energy for the spirits to take. Like, you know what I mean? Like. But that's just one more step of proof that yes, there is EMF in that room. So having the tools to show it is great.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good reasoning to do if it's all possible to kind of walk through and do some baseline. Just take the K2 with you, take a dry field if you have it, whatever it may be, and just kind of.
That's what Sam and Dean do.
Yeah. And we, I grew up on, I'll say grew up on, but I came into the field on the old school ghost hunters, back with taps.
Yeah.
And, that's the first thing they would do is just do a sweep of the property before they actually, and this was a lot
of
residential.
Let's see if there's high EMF. Let's see if, what noises are coming from what functions of the house type of thing. Yeah.
Wildwood Sanatorium.
Wildwood. That's it. Wildwood. Yes.
So,
yeah.
So what about you? For your go-to?
Are you asking me or Chad?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stacey, you. Yeah.
Oh, like I said, I love having a K2, but I love EVPs. My first, I guess, official, because I've been doing this since I was a kid. I'd go to graveyards, we'd take pictures, we'd see weird things, and it was all it's evidence, but there was no concrete evidence. My first, it was in the orphanage at Gettysburg, and we got an EVP that was definitely not anybody there. It was these kids singing, and it was midnight, and I love doing EVPs. If possible, when you have large investigations with lots of people, it is not easy to do. But I love EVPs. I really think that's. I don't know. Why are you guys laughing?
I think Chad's going to know why I'm laughing. He was not at this event, but we used to be at the Haldeman Mansion in Bainbridge as the host team, and we had a guest who just brought a lot of bad juju with her, and we kind of took a break, out of that, and we all left and went down to the Sheets in Marietta and got something to eat, something to drink, whatnot, and then we came back and we were sitting in one of the bedrooms, and quarters running. And nothing noted in the moment by any means, but listening to it later, there is this kind of monstery growl happening, and it's kind of coming and going and so forth. And then we realize that it's actually us digesting what we just had at Sheets.
Yeah.
So sometimes, you don't you get something that's you, right? And we talk about this with people all the time. We have recorders running in every session. If you move something and it makes a noise, you bump into something, you say something, you talk clearly.
You always have to say and don't whisper. And you always have to say I coughed or walking upstairs or
that was me.
Anything
That's
like
all
that.
you got to do. You will go crazy listening to audio and trying to figure out what that was when it really was you or someone with you.
And the worst thing
I'll have
is
to
having
let you listen to the audio one time of this, because it's like there is no question. Like, it was 6 of us in the room. There was a tour guide. She's talking and giving us like history. We're in the cellar down there in the orphanage, and it's midnight. The store's not open above. There's no one around. And as she's talking, it was literally the first 30 seconds of like us recording, and you hear this, "We're bad," in a kid's voice. And that, to me, I was done. I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's go buy all this equipment, and I want to investigate.
And unfortunately, boobies, the one problem there is it is so noisy. Every place we investigate, there's so much ambient noise. It is hard to separate that noise floor to try to even listen for EVPs.
Yeah, even in the catacombs, all the way underground. Like if you're in the lowest part, the large stairwell, you're underneath the bar above the steps, at the top of the steps.
And that's open till what?
It's still the hotel side, so we're not in the bar itself, but there is that element too, because the other stairway, the other exit point is into the main lobby, which they have a very massively large wooden door that literally drops down. So it's like a castle door or something. It's crazy, but when that's open still, there's so much noise pollution coming from the lobby. People going in and out of the restroom that's out there, hanging out, chatting. The bar itself, if there's karaoke or something going on, which it's great. That's what they do. You're hearing all of that pollution coming down through. It just carries through all that stone and echoes. So you kind of have to be willing, to get past that sometimes. And as things die down as the night goes on, it gets better. But that first session is usually a little tough to get around. But it's just that's the same thing in the second floor. The when you're on the first floor to the second floor, the same idea. People are in the ballroom above, moving around. People slide chairs,
you can hear
wood floors. So you got to be careful, that you're not getting too. But I can tell you this: we were in the Peacock room, which is the room that Eloise Booby allegedly died in. There's a group of us, maybe 8 or so of us, and we hear movement upstairs when I know there's no group up there. Like that group had dissipated enough that we absorbed them into another one. And I go up to look to see what's going on, because somebody's literally moving furniture around. And the only one up there is Jerry, who's in the other end of the room putting equipment away in boxes, and nowhere near this. And there's nothing. And if you know Jerry Keller, he's a little hard of hearing. So I'm like, did you hear that? He's like, you're what? So
he's a very quiet individual anyway, and very light on his feet. Like I wouldn't see you hearing him.
No,
we were talking about that gut road earlier, and I think I just EVPs. Maybe it's my thing. Maybe that's it comes to people differently. I was down on Gut Road, and my friend's son had just died down there, and there's been lots of freak car accidents on Gut Road. Yes, teenagers go down there and they drive too fast, and whatever. But it just seems like there's just multiple deaths on this road. So we went down there. It was twilight. There was no one around us. And so I literally am driving, being a sensitive. I stop the car right here. And we stopped the car. I get out, I grab the EVP, I grab the recorder. And so I start asking questions. I'm like, what's going on here? I'm like, why does people keep dying? Why are you killing people? And later when we went back and listened to that EVP, it's summer. The noises that a woods make in the summer. You hear the locusts, the birds, the chirping, all of this. Like, you can hear in this EVP, you hear all this chirping, you hear it go silent. And then you hear my addiction. And then the birds start up again. So when you have an EVP like that in the middle of the woods, like no noise pollution, like no cars coming, no nothing. Yes, you have bird noise pollution, but the noise pollution goes away. It goes silent, and then this comes through. That was pretty intense. So, I guess that's why I like the recorder.
Yeah, and like everything, when you use equipment like a recorder or a camera, every minute you record is another minute you got to review. So that's the downside, right? The post side of nobody really gets to see. You see, if you watch a show, you might get them sitting around, for like 4 minutes of the airtime, but it's really every hour is an hour on each equipment.
No,
actually,
running both. You know,
it's more like an hour and a half, because when you think you hear something,
you got to
go back and so it turns into more time than
when we did Crescent and we had all this video and audio and all this stuff. Like I stayed, I think I was at Sean's house, and we stayed there. And it was the Doss house too. We had Crescent and the Doss house.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say we stayed up until 4 or 6 a.m. the following day. We started at like after dinner, like 6 o'clock. We ate dinner, and then we're like, okay, let's examine evidence. And I swear, and all of us at the same time, like with our headphones, each of us, I think it like 4 a.m. It must have been like 8 hours.
It's once you get started, you can't stop.
Yeah.
Like you just get hooked, and it's like, I've been working on things, and all of a sudden, I started at 10 p.m. and it's like 2 a.m. I'm like, I gotta go to work the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yes.
Well, the killers used to live on property over at the Haldeman. They used to live in the carriage house next door. So we would leave the investigation and literally just walk over to their place and then start, sitting at the table. And there were plenty of times I looked up and the sun's coming up. I'm like, I gotta go home.
I don't like reviewing evidence the night of. I go to sleep. And then the next day, wake up, and then we start in the afternoon and review the evidence. And
you're right. It is better to do it with some rest and some, just a fresh perspective
and clear mind, fresh perspective. Yeah. So, but on that note, we were talking about work and stuff like that. So we are coming to the end of our show. I do have to get up early. That's why I started my show early, so I can end early. And like I said, I'm learning this now that I'm working full time and having to do a real job, and it is nice. It is nice having structure and having the paycheck and doing all that, but it is also sad that I don't get to do things like review evidence. I'm not going to do as many investigations, and because I see my weekends being like, I don't want to do anything. I want to lay here.
Well, once you get in a routine, then you'll be more comfortable opening back up and doing more stuff. So.
Well, and I work at schools, so I have off when the schools have off. So I have summers, holidays,
that's
stuff
cool.
like that. So
you'll find your place and spaces to do things. I don't think anyone's going to be able to keep you away. Schedule.
I'm having an adjustment disorder right now. I would diagnose myself with adjustment disorder.
You sound like a chiropractor's dream right there, right?
Yeah, there you go. I need one of those. Chad, Jamie, thanks for coming on tonight. Any final words that you want to say to anybody? Actually, I do have a final question I would like you to tell the audience. How do you protect yourselves at investigations? I think that's super important. We don't go in there. We don't act like assholes. We don't bully the spirits. That's my rules. How do you guys, what do you guys advice for ethical investigating?
Being respectful is the big thing. It's just going in typically, even if it's a like we're going to do a residential that's really active, we will do a prayer and a grounding session beforehand. We will be respectful. We'll make sure that we're not, because we've seen what happens when you don't. And when you're not respectful. We've had an investigator who got in a really bad car accident after being disrespectful. And then cutting ties.
I love your grounding practice, by the way, guys. I love that you guys do that. I was like, this is so awesome.
And cutting ties when you leave. I think that's the biggest thing. And especially people like you and me who are sensitive, things will find those cracks and get in. And I've been told that I've got some things hanging on to me because I'm open and I don't close it down right. So I think that's the important thing. Just Jamie, is you anything to tag onto that?
Well, it's the same. I mean, I agree. For me, the grounding and centering always helps me. I lose the crap that came with me. I don't need that, and no one does, right? And coming into an investigation, you want to be as clean a slate as you can be. Open-mindedness and just prepared to be in the moment, and not having all the hang-ons of your day or your life or whatever. Like the stuff. And
if you had like an emotional day and you're fighting with your spouse or you're fighting with your boss or something like that, and you're scheduled to go on an investigation, I would suggest not going.
That's not. Well, here you go though. You've waited for how long to get to this place finally?
And you paid your money to get there, and, or do something to calm yourself.
Yeah,
but make sure your emotional state is as stable and steady and grounded.
And that grounding and centering, we do it pretty quickly at the brewery, just to let people experience it. That could take people 5 minutes. It could take an hour. Like if you're truly doing it correctly, depending on what your emotional state is, you just need to do it until you're there. So
and not everybody understands that. I guess that's part of it. Like those who are more self-aware, I think, have a better understanding of how to do it for themselves. Others are just like, we're doing an exercise. Like we ask everybody to stand up. And like, okay, we do explain there's a reason, but like you have to buy that reason for it to truly be effective. And we're not afraid to stop a session if something is going south, or something is uncomfortable or something is negative is happening. We're not there we're never ever going to antagonize. That's not our practice. We are going to be as respectful as we can. I personally try to explain how everything works before we get going, just in case there's something with us that hasn't done this before. As much as we're teaching our guests in public events, we're also teaching spirits sometimes. That unless the brewery we've been at a long time now and we have a reoccurrence, but there are still those who may drift in from the train station. There may be just one-offs. So okay, maybe we'll get that activity there. And making sure you know how to leave an event safely, and that that car accident was an eye opener for me, for our team member, knowing that he did antagonize a lot that night, and he even now in hindsight says I shouldn't have done it, so and other things that have happened, and knowing who to contact if something happens after. We share our contact information with our guests, and we obviously know each other. So if something's going on, be aware. Pay attention to your surroundings, and going from that.
I don't know if you remember, I felt overwhelmed and I had to leave. Remember, I was up there and I felt overwhelmed up in. Is that the ballroom? Is that what that's called? The pink room.
Yeah.
So I was like,
pink,
I see you outside.
I never thought of that.
It's the pink room. I had to go outside. I felt very well because I was connecting with that spirit of. That was on the stairs because I put the SLS up there, but I felt like I knew she was there before I put the SLS, and I don't remember that. I was dancing. She was dancing around. She was trying to get Eloise's attention. I forget her name at this point, but I remember someone said, "Oh, that's
Sally."
Sally? Was it Sally?
Probably.
And that's what I picked up on because it was, and I'm horrible with names. But the other guy that investigates with you, guy that kind of has a connection with her.
David. Yeah.
David. Yes. So all that was very overwhelming. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go outside for a little bit. And I know to do that. I know, like, okay, I'm feeling this. And it wasn't anything negative. It was just like, I was opening myself up and the spirits were coming in. So I was like, okay, it's time to go outside and ground and just be out in the fresh air, out of the building. So that's always my way I do things.
There's never a problem with taking that break. There should never be a problem with it, because that's self-care, right? Taking care of you in the moment you're in, making sure that you're okay. That's our priority, especially with our guests, because not everybody has the same experience. And we say this all the time. Like, if you feel something, hear something, see something, smell something, something touches you, the person next to you may not have that experience. It was meant for you. So, there's no shame in saying so. Like, we welcome you to comment about it. We want to know. And, some people are off-put. Think about if you've ever been touched the first time, I remember that. You never forget your first time. I remember mine.
Yeah.
Mine was in the summer kitchen at the Haldeman. I'll never forget it. So, and it's happened since, and it's still off-putting, but it's not as much.
Yeah.
You gotta bring that forward because that's an opportunity. Something is trying to make a connection or contact at that point. Never be afraid to say that you're experiencing something because it's important.
Yes. And you have to realize, like, they're doing those things because they want to do that. They're trying to make a connection. Most 99% of the time, They are not malevolent
Right.
spirits. They are just like, hey, this is how I know how to get your attention, so I'm going to do it that way.
Yep.
So, yeah. So I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming on. How can people find your podcast? Like, where do they go to look for it?
Sure, Chad.
We're on Spotify. The easiest way to find all our social stuff is we have Linktree. It's Linktree /Paranormal Lens. All the socials there. Everything we do is there. We're at Booby's Brewery once a month. August 16th is the next time we're there. But yeah, Paranormal Lens is on Facebook. JOTT Nyx is on Facebook. Check us out either place. YouTube.
We have a YouTube channel as well. So we have 114 episodes in our backlog at this point. So there's a lot of stuff from all over. And
I always going to do a thank you recap, and I will put all your links in there. And everybody can go follow that. And Erica's like, I remember the time at Sammy Miller when you opened yourself up, and I did. Real quick, I had an experience there. We went, it was a large investigation. It was like a public investigation. So it was a lot of people. It was the end of the night, and I was coming from Gettysburg because I was doing an event. Kind of like when I did seems like I go to events and then I travel an hour. And I did the same thing because I was at Pennhurst the morning before. When I came with you guys, I was at Gettysburg doing a holistic event. And we drove down and did Sammy Miller. And by the time in the evening, and I felt something, and I was like, and I used the wrong, it really was in my wording. And I said, I'm opening myself up to you instead of saying I'm opening to communicate to you or communicate to me. And he came in and showed me all of it. And I felt like I was having a heart attack. And I had to go outside. And I think Erica was out there. Eric, I think you were out there with me when I was trying to recenter and calm. Again, left the building. For me, that's a big thing. I leave the area, leave the building, and get outside. But that's just how I do things. So, but yeah, she remembers that. So again, everybody, please go follow them. It's JOTT Nyx. It's JOTT-NYX. If you just go into Facebook or YouTube, you can put that in there. But if you follow me, and I will tag them, I will have a post here within the next 24 hours, thanking them for being on with all of the links and everything that you can do. If you're watching this from Spotify or any of your other podcast sites, it's in the show notes. You can find all their links in the show notes from there. Please go over and watch their show. It's very, very informative. A lot of information. I love the one they just did on Annabelle. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that, but we're running out of time. So everybody go over and watch their show about Annabelle. They had a wealth of information they shared in that episode. So thank you guys for coming on. I'm going to play my outro. Feel free to stick around afterwards in the background, in the backstage. And everybody that's been on here tonight, thank you for watching me. Thanks for coming back after a month break. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. I do this because of you guys. This can't happen without people watching. So thank you all very much. And don't forget to fill your cup first. You can't pour from an empty cup. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night.